Most people watch the news, see the horror in the world, and think to themselves, I can't imagine how hard that is. And then they change the channel because it's too painful to watch. Advocates, on the other hand, step up every single day to sit right next to people feeling pain. They meet people on the worst days of their lives. Victim advocates have a really unique role in this world. My work is a constant love letter to victim advocates to sit with people in the depths of hell. For their bravery, I want to thank every victim advocate on this planet. And although my role as a trainer is to teach advocates skills and theories that they may use in the line of duty, I often find that the advocates teach me much more. This podcast is my nod to the brilliant people who've attended my workshops and opened my eyes to new ideas every day. I'm Dr. Kate Watson, and this is Advocate Insights. All right. Welcome to Advocate Insights, folks. I'm Dr. Kate Watson, and I have a brilliant guest with me today. Today, we are joined by Ms. Leslie Cardona, a sexual assault response coordinator for the United States military. What can you tell us about you, my friend?
Well, I did not plan on this type of work. I kind of stumbled into it. As much of my life looks like it's not part of my plan, it's where I end up on my journey. So I have been doing this since 2012. I started just before Hurricane Sandy with the military. I am the spouse of two Navy men. Didn't get it right the first time, try it again. And I have never served military myself. I'm retired law enforcement. So I retired from NYPD, and a lot of the same skill sets I had there actually transferred right over. And I found out about this particular type of job through people in NYPD. I was in graduate school, and one person pulled me to the side and said, you actually have all the skills for this. You should apply. If you don't, I will. And here I am. A few years later, I'm still doing it. I'm still passionate about it. And I love to get people the help they need in time of crisis.
You jumped right into what I was going to ask you next. I love, no matter where I am, I love asking people, what do you love about your work? Now, you did just answer that, but is there anything else you want to say about what you love about your work?
What I love about my work is when I originally got here, and right now it still is that, you get to do education, crisis intervention, and postvention, even though I'm not licensed clinical. I love it when people get the light bulb going on. That for me is a thrill. I love it when they understand what this looks like: sexual harassment, sexual assault, trauma-informed care, anything trauma-informed care. I get excited when people really start to understand it. And I'm always learning more about this. Crisis happens, life happens. And some people get more than most. In the military, it just seems to be nonstop. There's always something. I am never bored in my job. And even though I've been doing this a long time, no case is ever the same. No victim or set of circumstances are the same. So I'm always trying to find a solution for them. And I want to be part of the solution. Congress came forward and said quite a few years ago, military, you need to do this better. I am not questioning that. And I think I can bring to the table ways to do it better. So I get the opportunity to do that on a regular basis. What better job is there in retirement than that? This is my retirement job. I love it. And I'll be here until there's no longer a need. I got a feeling there's going to be a need for a while.
You know, where some people retire and go scoop ice cream at Disney World, you took on quite a task, my friend. And, you know, in many ways, that leads me into what you and I thought we might talk about today. When I asked you, of all the things might we discuss, we thought maybe there is a little conversation to be had about the stress of this job. And I think that's so interesting that both are happening at the same time, right? So on the one hand, you said, let's talk about the stress of this work. And on the other hand, you're telling me this is what you've chosen to do in retirement. Tell me how those things go together.
Now, if you ask my husband, it might be a different conversation, but you and I talking, and I'm so glad we talked about this beforehand because I really do think there's something to it. Sexual assault in the military is a little bit challenging on a good day. Now, there are so many other leaders that are in the news that have done this work. Their stress levels, I don't know how they retain resiliency. If you're doing your job right, you're not going to be liked by anyone. There's a whole story to that. I pray every single day that I get leaders that support my victims getting care. That's what I'm here for. That's all I'm here for. And to stay within the regulations and HIPAA compliance and getting the best care for my people. That's not always the most popular view. I've seen it in other agencies. They have to look at themselves, and we have to keep them honest in my job. And that could be hard on a regular day.
Gosh.
It really depends on the leadership you have. And if you have great leadership, it's wonderful. If you have leadership that doesn't understand what we're supposed to be doing, and a lot of them don't, I spend a lot of time just educating on the basics at all levels, no matter how high they are. There are certain things we cannot do. We have to protect our clients. And with that, if somebody has what we call a restricted report, I can neither confirm nor deny anything. Please don't ask me. And that's even an ongoing conversation with people at this stage of the game. Mm-hmm. So is our stress a little high, and what do we have to do to take care of ourselves? I could talk for days. During COVID, I thought my world would get a little easier. It actually got more complicated. And my stress levels, I had to engage, and I kissed the ground. I had proper program management that encouraged this. We had to make time for our self-care, or we never would have survived, because domestic violence, sadly, is an issue. During COVID, people were under lockdown. What do you do if you can't move anyone anywhere? There was no expedited transfer. There was no hospitalization. We had to take care of ourselves because we saw this all day, all night going on for months and years. Yeah. So self-care is something that's so basic and essential. I have to do it every single day. Otherwise, I could go right back to where I was around 9/11. I'm older. I don't mind sharing. I was down at 9/11. I was with NYPD Papa at that point. So we were taking people off the front lines if they shut down. That's basically what we were doing. Yeah. So after 9/11, I had my own burnout for about a year. It took me a full year to come back through all kinds of intervention. And I had excellent care for trauma and everything else, PTSD. I learned those tools. I'm happy to teach what I can to others as a peer support, as a resource, or get them to someone who can give them that higher level of care. But yeah, at this level and this job, if we don't take care of ourselves regularly, I don't know how people, I've seen people burn out in this field, and I've helped people get to where they need to go to recover. I never want to be that, and I never want to see that again.
Yeah, I often say self-care is not an action. It's not a behavior. It's a mindset. It's believing that you're important enough to take care of. And that's really a mindset that I would hope never leaves us. Unfortunately, it does, where we are so, especially in the military, a lot of folks are there in service to others, and sacrificial in many ways. And it kind of perpetuates this idea that I am not important, other people are. And I think the idea of self-care ought to be a mindset that never gets turned off. It's not something I schedule on my calendar. I'm going to do self-care at 2:00. It's like, no, I'm going to wake up every day believing that my wellness matters and my safety matters day in and day out.
I applaud you, Kate. I wish so many more people would be like that. For me, I just get up and I start with basic meditation. Small amounts of exercise, but I have to make myself accountable to people. For me, if I'm not accountable, I don't do it. I'm just bad. And I have friends who call me out on it regularly.
But I think this is important. A lot of people dismiss their stress or the things that have happened to them and say, ah, that's just the job, or, oh, this is just normal, or, oh, I've been through worse, and they blow it off. And I think that's where a lot of workshops on self-care really go wrong, is like, I don't think they do a good enough job of talking about all of those things that are weighing on us. Like, what are they? And you've talked about a few, the fast pace of the work, the constant changes, the sometimes maybe worrying that you're not very popular or you're unliked. On top of that, just worrying about the safety of your fellow service members and the folks who, you're there to care for. That is a lot that weighs on a person, whether you are a SARC or an advocate or whatever your title is.
Absolutely. And I also think part of it is now, especially with all that we have going on, that military people face. It doesn't have to be military, but what people are facing that we service. It's hard to learn how to not take on what they're coming in with their stress issues. I had someone, for example, and this, I just heard it on the news too, so it reminded me of it. Weight in the military. The study came out that 68% of our people in the military are overweight. What does that look like for them? But for example, somebody bringing on that type of stress, they're going to lose their home, they're going to lose their job. If, we get 3 strikes, you're out, or I think they've even modified it since then. And a lot of our sexual assault victims don't even know that they can apply for a one-time waiver for this. But their stress levels are off the chart. For example, for something like weight, it doesn't have to be a sexual assault victim, but that just is the one that came up in the news. World happenings, people are deploying. That's no secret. Families are panicking, freaking out. We went through this with Afghanistan not too long ago. We're going through this again. You're taking on nonstop anxiety. There's been days, I don't know what the average person does because I'm not comparing myself for metrics, but you may get 10, 12 people in a day. Boom, 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 high levels of anxiety. You got to find a way to release that before you bring it home to others and internalize it. And it sounds like you have a wonderful system, in your world, how to deal with that. But a lot of people don't, especially if they're new to the job. And I wish they'd spend more time when people are new in the job explaining this to them. I was lucky. I learned it. I had some good people to follow, but not everybody gets that.
Well, you might be giving me too much credit. So, because just like everybody else, I sometimes find myself saying, well, I'm going to skip going to the gym, or I'm not going to do my mindfulness, or the time that I had dedicated to journaling, I'm going to skip it. I'm vulnerable to that, just like everybody. But when I don't do it, I think the difference is I ask myself, why is it that I don't think I'm important enough right now? And that's a little different than saying like, oh, I'm so mad at myself for skipping my workout today, or my end of evening bubble bath that is my self-care. You can be mad at yourself for it and put yourself down and shame yourself and say, I blew it again. Or you could ask yourself, what's going on right now that I don't think I'm worth it? And that's the only thing that I think makes me maybe a little different, because I definitely still have days where I say I didn't do the thing that I said I was going to do. But the follow-up question is, how come I'm not worth it? How come everybody else is worth it and I'm not worth it? And I think about that a lot.
No, I get that part. I am not a biological mom, but I have mothered children. I fostered, I've had nieces, nephews, whoever in my house at any point. And whenever a younger person is in the house, I find myself forgetting about myself. I am not important enough. I need to take care of their needs.
Yeah. You know it. You know it well. And I think it's just worth noting, you even mentioned how like mistakes that happen in this work can hit the news. And that's a whole other level of stress and pressure that breeds this culture of I'm afraid to make a mistake now. And talk about stress. I mean, I don't know how many people listening work in an environment where a simple mistake could be so heavily punished. But some of the listeners work in that kind of environment. And I worry about that for folks that, I wish for everyone that we could live and work in environments where a mistake isn't the end of your career. But, in a high stakes situation, that's just another pressure on us.
Oh, so totally right. It's so easy to make a little mistake. For example, and this is no secret, government put out new policy that we're still trying to update. And most of the time, you follow the DoD instructions. There are other agencies that have their own internal ways of doing things. My agency is a little further behind than most. And something could come out. For example, I was out for personal reasons for a couple of months, and I came back and several of the policies changed. Something as simple as a notification turned into a major and it wasn't just me, but it was everybody on this email chain. And you could see the anxiety going back and forth just on the email chain for how you notify someone. And this change was so, honestly, it was not that much to get upset over, but you could hear the anxiety in the email. You didn't have to guess. And yeah, a career could even be over for this. So yeah, you're spot on with the type of anxiety and stress that goes on in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I weren't. I wish I were wrong about all of this. As we're rounding this out, is there anything that you haven't quite captured in this conversation that you would really like to make sure you say before we finish up?
I guess the biggest message is it doesn't have to be just military, but for anyone, there are resources out there for people. In the military, they're brainwashed to feel that they have to be on the record, they have to be a formal referral. They don't. And there are so many people in the community that we work with on a regular basis that provide services. I can't survive without them. And if anybody ever wants to learn about where their resources are, if you don't mind giving out my information, I'd be happy to connect them, because I've had the luxury of working in so many different states, locations where we had to find resources fast for people. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest takeaway that I'd like to share with your audience today, Dr. Watson.
I think that's great. And there are a lot of resources out there that go unused because people just don't know about them. And so, yes, I'd be happy, since you offered, I'd be happy to share your information on our website, like right next to where the podcast is. And if ever you change your mind about that, you can let me know. But you're right. We did just spend all this time talking about stress and anxiety, stress and anxiety, stress and anxiety. There is hope. And it's not always on the stressed out, anxious person to figure it all out. And if you're feeling like it's all on you to figure it all out, well, why is that? Or why is it that you're not feeling supported by others? Because there are so many people who do understand what you're going through. There are so many resources available that you could access in whatever way makes you comfortable. And if only more people did. So thank you for bringing us back to that. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. To the listeners, if you have any questions or comments or feedback for me, please send me a message at kate@advocacyacademy.org. So that's my name, Kate, Kate, at Advocacy Academy, like it's all one word, .org. I'd be happy to hear from you there, but you can also find us on social media. We're on Instagram. Now we're on Threads as of this summer, and YouTube. And you can easily find us using the handle at Advocate W. So that's Advo, which is ADVO, and then my name, Kate W, KATEW. So all together, it becomes Advocate W. Check us out next time when we explore more advocate insights.